I've always been confused at how life and death worked in this game, mostly because of how often death is brought up and referred to in seemingly different contexts every time, like those who live in death, untrue death, rune of death, death birds, death root, and also how some characters are dead but not dead, and there's spirits and there's runes, and how we're told in game that the Golden Order is against life and against death. Like, what does that mean? So I'm going to try and help you out by explaining the basics, and you can go deeper from there if you really want to. As I understand it, there are three parts to a being in this world. It starts with a non-living, physical body like stone, and then there's two living parts. The first part is a simple, natural life given to the body like your skin cells, blood, and bones. The natural, animalistic part. This part of life is like how a tree is living, but it doesn't have a personality or a soul. The second part of life is just that, a personality and a soul, your mind, energy, power, and intelligence, like a nervous system. And something important to note, the natural life portion of things is given through birth and is what connects you to your parents and lineage, but I'll get to that in a bit. In the Dark Souls games, souls were consumable items, and here, runes fittingly take that role. Runes are the physical form of the second kind of energy we talked about, the soul, personality, nervous system part. This is most likely what Marika pulls from the corpse in the DLC story trailer, strands of life energy. That's why they look like tiny strands of a nervous system. The Onyx and Alabaster Lords shows concept of life very well. An unliving stone struck with pure life energy. The stone absorbed that energy and sprung to life. However, they're missing the bodily or natural part of life, a living soul infused into rock. In the story trailer for the main game, when they tell us of Godwin's death, his death here was actually an untrue death. And all an untrue death, or those who live in death, means is that only their soul was killed, while their natural bodily life and their physical non-living body are still intact. The Rune of Death is a powerful artifact that absorbs all forms of life energy like a black hole, and if used in a specific way, it can take just one of the two parts of life. This is the cause of untrue death, or soul death that I've been talking about. And this is exclusively, it's only caused by the Rune of Death. Even if it's from a secondhand source, such as the black knives they used to kill Godwin, or by physically contacting Death Root, thus succumbing to Death Blight. Now there are two unique situations that I want to mention. First is with this soul death. There are times where the non-living physical body, as well as the soul, are lost. And so all that's left is an empty spirit of the living body. I know this is confusing, but it's like in Fullmetal Alchemist when Alphonse meets the spirit of his body. It talks to him with no personality and wants its soul back, like an empty shell that still represents Alphonse. These spirits still have no personality or soul, but have the abilities and looks of the person it used to belong to, like an imprint of the soul. The second situation is that there are some characters who have had their natural bodily life killed, yet still have their soul and personality intact. This usually causes them to have to abandon their non-living physical bodies as well. And as I've said before, the natural life side of things is what connects someone to their parents and their lineage, and this is the reason some have wanted to get rid of this part of themselves. In the lands between, death is usually overseen by an outer god, and every god has their own way of handling it. It's almost like a phone plan. An outer god company gets to be your sole service provider, and if you follow their rules and pay them their dues, your life gets to go to them. Yay. Previously, death was processed by a great twin bird, the mother of these guys. Right now, the Greater Will oversees death, and for the Greater Will to process your soul, you have to die close to the Erd Tree's roots. And like a reverse power plant, the Erd Tree absorbs your life energy, or runes, and this is what creates the Elden Ring. The Elden Ring is essentially a ton of souls condensed into one big rune that can be used like a battery, and the Greater Will gets to use it however they want. I have a theory for this that I got from a YouTuber named Matthew Mitosis in his Dark Souls 1 video. He brings up the idea of how the second law of thermodynamics and the heat death of the universe could relate heavily to the story of Dark Souls, and I think a similar thing is going on with Elden Ring. Basically, in a universal sense, this law says that all heat and energy will eventually be dispersed into the cold, empty abyss of space, and one day everything will be neutral and silent, a dead universe, and I think this is what the Outer Gods are trying to prevent, although mostly for themselves. The Outer Gods are pure life energy, and they go place to place trying to gather up more life energy from different planets and lands before it gets dispersed and lost forever. I also think that their own life energy is being used and dispersed similar to a star. So in a way, they're like everything else, counting the days until an inevitable death.